Love and Lust. Welcome to Love and Lust. Love and Lust is a podcast about sex and relationships. I am your host, Anna Lefebvre. Viewing discretion and listening discretion is definitely advised. So today we have Mr. Larry Nuface Compton. He is a hip hop historian, preservist, protector of the culture, and human time capsule is what people call him in the industry. And I'm super excited to talk to you because I want a lesson in hip hop. Hip hop has influenced my life, but I don't know everything about it and the history behind it. I am a little bit ignorant towards that. To be honest, the way I started listening to hip hop was my dad was playing Warren G back in the 90s, and then it kind of evolved from there. And I know hip hop has strongly evolved from the 1990s. And there's an evolution of hip hop with women, hip hop and the culture, hip hop and love. So I kind of just want to get your feel on it. But first of all, who are your favorite? Do you have favorite hip hop artists? And who are they?
Royce da 5'9" from Detroit, Killer Mike from Atlanta, Eminem from Detroit, Ice Cube, Scarface from Houston, Bun B, Pimp C, Big Crit, Trans League. I can go on, and you brought up Warren G, so I had to pull out my G-Funk era tape.
Ooh,
you know,
nice.
You'll have to
Awesome.
pardon me if you say a name. I might just go on my collection. Like I'm an avid cassette collector and everything. So if you say a name, I might go on my collection and pull something out. But more importantly, like R.I.P. Nipsey Hussle. That's one of my other favorite artists as well.
Yeah, definitely good. Definitely good. So I was, following up a little bit about you, and you started loving hip hop way back in the day in Detroit. You were selling hip hop tapes and the Kool-Aid, right? And
Yes,
that's what I read or heard about you. So how did your love for hip hop kind of like come to?
And it's almost, and it's great to hear, like it's similar to your story. Like I just remember vividly, like one day when my father picked me up, took me and my cousin to a mall, and got us a pair of Shell Toe Adidas, the Adidas tracksuit with the black with the 3 red stripes. And then I'm thinking in my head, like, oh, that's dope in itself. But we took a trip to a place called Cobo Hall. And there was proceeded to be 3 white boys on the stage jumping up and down, and everybody was cheering them. And that later became Beastie Boys. The next act ended up being one gentleman with a boombox and a DJ that ended up being LL Cool J, followed by Houdini and then Run DMC and R.I.P. Jam Master Jay. And it was that moment when Run DMC was like, everybody that got Adidas, take your shoes off in the air and put them in the air. And like, I'm looking around and seeing other people doing it. And I'm looking at people who couldn't do it. Then I was like, oh, snap. Like one of them aha moments, like, I seen what you did there, Dad. Yeah. So like from that moment on, I mean, of course, just in the neighborhood, I grew up, he was listening to funk, and my mother was listening to the Pat Benatars and Phil Collins and all that. So I grew up with a music-orientated family, but it was just like that moment that kind of clicked in my life to like, yo, hip-hop is where I want to be. I want to learn more. I love this feeling. I love, like, this is making history because, like, hip-hop is like still, as old as it is, still the youngest genre of music, and it's also the biggest.
That's true.
So
That's true.
It was that moment there, though.
So when I was younger, I actually grew up in the church. There was a point when I was really young that I wasn't even allowed to wear pants. That was how, because growing up in the South, I forget the Baptists and everything. I forget exactly what denomination we were at that point. So I would listen to Warren G and everything when my dad would kind of like slip it in when mom wasn't around, and he was like probably washing his truck and I'm outside listening to it. And I have a love for a lot of different kind of music, but I always felt I just loved hip hop because I just liked the way it made me feel. Like I just felt powerful and I just felt like I was in the moment and I just felt like one of the cool kids. So over the years, how has hip hop transitioned from the commencement of it to where we are right now? How has it evolved?
Um, I'll, I'll I'll answer that question, but I'll stay with one thing: and how it's been consistent. From day one, hip hop artists and hip hop music has been the forefront of things that have been happening in our communities. From NWA saying "fuck the police," that was a cause and effect from the riots in LA and the police beating of Rodney King and the situations that were happening in their neighborhoods. Things the artists were saying in their music, although it was delayed from the time it was released, they were speaking on things that the news weren't speaking about. And it also transitioned from, this derelict of, pardon my French, like fuck the bitch era, fuck these bitches and this and that, and this gangster mentality to us now uplifting our queens and saying salute to black queens and salute these black women. And to now you see our vice president is a female. And music has been reflected in that, and we have more hip-hop artists that are reflected from the music, from a Meg Thee Stallion to Cardi B's to Rhapsody. So there's so much balance in it. So the things that have kind of changed is just the evolution and the message of it and the empowerment of it, and getting it back to what hip-hop really was, it's just our voice. People didn't want to display our voices in the news. We had no platform. The news wasn't going to invite us. Authors, Time Magazine wasn't going to invite us on their platform to share what was going on in our communities. So, but hip hop gave us that voice and the money and the power of influence. So you had trap music that started out that now these people are able to change lives. Like T.I. has a trap music museum. He has Bankhead Seafood. They're part of Owners and Barbershop. They're filmmakers. So it gave us empowerment, and it created jobs in the community. So those are one of the things that kind of changed with hip hop.
When did hip hop start becoming more mainstream? When did it start becoming a little more acceptable? Because I remember when I was younger, people, especially being growing up in church and everything, they're like, "Oh my God, don't,"
Uh-huh.
But now it's more accepted everywhere. When did it start becoming more mainstream?
I'll tell you a couple phases that I realized it. Walk This Way on MTV with Run DMC and Aerosmith.
Okay.
So both the white audience, the pop audience, and the hip hop fans were able to see each other coexist in one platform, which was rap music, and able to do their part. We were able to do our part, and we didn't have to compromise our sound. So that kind of brought it to a wider area. You also had LL Cool J doing a Gap commercial where he was also wearing a FUBU hat. Subconsciously, it was basically two commercials in one. A lot of people didn't notice he was wearing a FUBU commercial, and he also said for us, by us. Mm-hmm. So I always give him props and kind of secretly adding a FUBU commercial and a Gap ad. So it was like these moments, and again, Run DMC with Adidas, and how they were influencing pop culture and influencing people. I noticed the influence, like Jay-Z, there was a time with jerseys, and he said, put a button up on. Take that, and Andre, take that shirt 3 sizes down. Like there was a moment where you can see the influence. Cameron with Dipset, the moment he wore pink and bought a pink Range Rover, every store in America had pink tees and mm-hmm. pink tall tees, and everybody wanted to be cool wearing pink. Yeah. Ciroc with Diddy with Ciroc. So once it was like the power of influence, that's when it became mainstream, because now you have this new audience that would introduce the things they knew nothing about, but all they had to do was turn on the radio. Us in the black community, we were already a part of it, but now you had these people in the suburbs were able to turn on the radio and say, oh, that's what's cool. Mom, can you help me buy this? I want to buy this. I want to buy these Beats by Dre headphones. I want to buy this FUBU outfit. You know what I'm saying? So that's where I kind of take it where it went pop or mainstream, as you would say.
Yeah, and I just realized how racist that word is. As you're explaining mainstream, I just had an epiphany about that, because what's mainstream to you doesn't mean it's not mainstream to somebody else. So that's a very ignorant way. And you just taught me something, and I'm just happy to actually be able to
shout out
back.
to Andre 3000 from Outkast. One of my favorite lines where he said, "We floating face down in the mainstream."
Yeah.
A lot of people think that's the finish line, or that's the focal point, being mainstream, but it's what you do once you get there is the angle. A lot of people get there and think that's the end and it's celebration time, and they always fail at that point. You know what I'm saying? So
Yeah.
you got to just be conscious of what your goal is and what that mainstream means to you mentally as an artist.
Yeah. That is so wow. That's powerful what you just said. Um, so who would you consider is the like liaison, the starter of hip hop? Like what era did it start? What decade did it start, and with what artist or artists?
Um, of course, you got Blondie, which was like a first female artist. You got
Okay.
the Grandmaster Flash. You got Melly Mel. But what's coming more to light that I love is that, everyone always say like hip hop started in New York and it started in Bronx, but the sound and the whole concept behind it really has Jamaican roots. From the drum patterns and from the dance and the sounds that you heard, really comes from that era and from the Caribbean influence. You can hear it from hip hop today. So that's one thing that I love that's starting to get a little light. Busta Rhymes said it recently on Drink Champs, and I'm working on a couple of things that can kind of expose that truth a little bit more. But as they say, Sedgwick in the Bronx, hip hop started out in the park from the DJs. The elements of hip hop is, the DJ, the b-boy, the graffiti, and of course the MC. So those type of things, but it really just started out as house parties. It started
Yeah.
once Grandmaster Flash kind of did the scratch on the DJs and was able to take a break beat and make a whole, take one song, 1 second of an original song, but make it a whole hip hop beat to where the MC would be on the mic and saying, "Yo, ladies, throw your hands up high where I can see," and there's this chant and there's this cause and effect. And there's this reception to it, and that's where kind of hip hop would derive from, and it's taken many forms. But the actuality is that's where it kind of came from and derived from, and it's taken many forms since then. But I'd say New York and Caribbean, Jamaica.
I didn't know that. That's very interesting. I did not know that. I did not put that together. I did watch something about Grandmaster. It was a show, so obviously it wasn't 100% accurate. But I did watch something a couple years ago about it. It was very interesting about the house parties and how a DJ had a really big influence on, you know, a lot of the way the music sounded and the way it was put out in the radio. A lot
They
of,
had the biggest
yeah,
influence because at that point they were before the MC, they were the one with the microphone.
yeah,
The speakers were their microphones. And then
exactly.
it took them MC, as far as at that point was started as a host. But then you have like a Dougie Fresh or these other MCs that kind of took it forward, and like I said, with these chants and these cause and effect and making the audience say this, and ladies, and wave your hands up high where I can see, like, then that's where it took another form. And then once somebody started rhyming, oh, it was over. Like, you know what I'm saying? It just sounded good. It just sounded good from the tongue, from the Roxanne Shantays to, that whole era. It just sounded good. So we just perfected what we already knew.
Now, correct me if I'm wrong. Correct me if I'm being ignorant. I was told, I didn't. I did a little bit of research, but I was told that Biggie had a lot to do with the way female rap artists are looked at, or are not marketed. But I'm trying to use a word that's similar to this day. Like he kind of used Little Kim as a protege. Is that something that's kind of accurate? Did Biggie have a really big influence on the way female rappers are?
Mm, I mean, yeah, from the perspective of trying to get the male audience to support it, yeah,
Okay.
but before him, female artists were already like kind of at that point.
Going.
He gave them a bigger platform, I'd say.
Yeah.
And of course, he gave them his pen, which was great, to kind of transition into, okay, he can rap. And now we have a female where at that time it was like, a sex symbol and they look good, but it didn't transition in because it didn't sound good. Sometimes the bars didn't kind of match the look, or it didn't
Yeah.
match. So he kind of helped blend the two to where it was good on the eyes and good on the ears as a hip hop fan.
Yeah. And I actually understand that like more than people can know, because I was describing this yesterday to somebody. Being a female, because I do stand up comedy before COVID, and being a female stand up comedian that has a certain look, way people perceive me is the way people perceive me. I don't see it, but you have to take that in mind. So I can't do certain jokes, and I actually have to be funnier than the way I look, because I don't look like a typical person. So sometimes the things I say don't resonate, but I have to be super conscious and over funny. Like I have to go above and beyond. And then also, I can't even talk about certain jokes that I want to talk about if the viewer is looking at me. So I completely get that, because sometimes it's really hard to sell yourself when people want to stereotype you and put you in a bracket and say, oh, well, you look that way, so you shouldn't be doing that. Oh, you look that way and you can't do that. So I completely get that. So what is the evolution of females though? Like when they started, what decade was it when females started becoming accepted in the hip hop world as rappers and as serious rappers with talent?
Me personally, from day one, really one of my first tapes that I remember buying as a kid was like this Salt and Pepper tape right here.
Okay.
And this goes back early. This is Salt and Pepper, Hot, Cool, and Vicious. This goes back to where even Spinderella wasn't even their DJ.
Okay.
So this kind of goes back, and even like MC Light, another one. This one's autographed as well. So from me earlier on, I always wanted to see that perspective. Like for me, it was a breath of fresh air. Because it's just like being in a club with a bunch of like hard legs, as we call them. Like I need balance. So
Yeah.
for me personally, but I'd say the evolution kind of started with the Queen Latifahs, the MC Lights, Roxanne Shante. I'll definitely start there because her influence goes from a Nas and MC Shan, all these people that sparked there, or people who look up to her and put her on the pedestal. But I'd say you look at moments like the Brat being the first MC to go platinum was a start. Little Kim following that. Then you have like a Foxy Brown being the first lady of Def Jam. And then you start seeing these hip hop collectives starting to get their first lady. You know what I'm saying? Rough Riders' first lady is Eve. So Def's first lady is the Brat. The whole squad with Queen Latifah, she was the first lady of her squad, Flavor Unit. So that's kind of the whole transition from it to them breaking off into being their whole entity. And that's where you have like a Cardi B who kind of started on her own. There was no label or no kind of co-sign, and you start seeing these people kind of coming out on their own independently, and that's kind of the evolution of it. But me personally, I've been supporting hip-hop females from day one, from the Brats. Like I got a whole row dedicated to them. I got Queen Latifah, Little Kim, the Brat, Mia X, Gangsta Boo, Trina, Toto, Conscious Daughters from the West Coast, one of my favorite groups out there in the West Coast. So me personally, it's always been that way, but it's been great to see the reception, and I literally just got it in the mail this yesterday, my WAP tape.
Ooh.
I'm still an avid collector of cassette tapes, new or old.
Oh, I love it. I love it. I love it. I used to have Walkman and used to, I'm 31, so I used to have the Walkman and everything. So I remember that.
I still have them. Still have VCRs, still have a tape deck, still have, PlayStation, Nintendo's cassette tapes.
Nice. I love it. So since this show is about sex and relationships, I'm going to bring it back into, talking about love. So what is the influence of hip hop has on romance and love? And let's just start there. What is the influence that it has on romance and love?
I will say from the start, it was very masculine and misogynist. I have to be honest, I love songs like Bomb Ass Pussy and Bitches Ain't Shit. But it's all about balance. I love Dear Mama. I love Beautiful Back Skin by Goody Mob. I love, Dear Mama. So it's just, it started out very misogynistic, and it was this attitude of like, we love our mothers, but fuck our baby mothers. So to see the transition kind of to where it is now evolve, it's been great. But I definitely say it seemed minimal, but I love those red lights when you had songs like Eminem and Mockingbird with speaking about his relationship with his daughter. It was just certain songs that kind of prepared me, but I used that to kind of prepare me to be a parent. When I heard songs from Jay-Z and Beanie Siegel, a song called "Where Have You Been," where they were speaking about the disdain of their fathers not being in their life and how it affected them, I kind of took it upon myself to do whatever I can as a parent to not, make my children grow up and write a song
Yeah.
like that,
Yeah.
like that. Shaquille O'Neal's "Biological" didn't bother, where he was speaking about his biological father didn't want to be a part of his life, but his stepfather stepping up and being that man that he needed. I'd say that, with hip hop kind of helped me guide me through that, so I kind of use it for good. I definitely, it is the guilty pleasure to hear, the shake your ass and me so horny, but it's all about balance with me. Of course, I had to hide those 2 short tapes and 2 live crews under my mattress, but my mother wasn't, I hear those stories about I was a church kid or I couldn't listen to this, but my mother was very supportive of, what I was listening to, and it never kind of made me feel bad or criticize me for my listening pleasures. And I definitely do the same with my children today. I'm very supportive, for I embrace whatever it is. I never kind of judge them off their preferences. And they actually taught me a lot, from the Juice Worlds to, little extension, like these two people that passed recently, RIP to them, but my children introduced me to them. My daughter introduced me to Mulatto, and like I've been doing it, and that's another one. Like they put me on, but I see what they like in them. You know what I'm saying? So that's great to be on the same accord with your children and their music preferences, and not just be like, you should listen to the golden age and this is when music was good. You're never gonna hear me say that to any generation, old or young. Like, you like what you like. This is what I like, and if I can point you in the right direction of more in it, then my pleasure. But I'm never going to judge anybody by their listening pleasures, because you never know. It's all about the message and not the messenger with me.
Yeah.
I can learn a lot from Plies, but some people look at him with gold teeth and, and think differently, or tattoos on people's faces. Andre 3000, once again, I love quoting him, but because he has a quote that he says, everybody with dreads is not for the cause, and everybody with golds is not for the fall. So don't get caught up in world appearances. Outcast, Aquemini, another black experiences. So what he's basically saying is, we have this stereotype that people with dreads, incense, and they're here for the cause, and these people with gold teeth, they're villains, they're thugs, they're goonies, and they don't have our best interests at heart. But I don't get up in all that. Like, some of my best friends are millionaires, and you wouldn't even know it, by looking at them. And I get messages from them, and I get lessons from them. So I never judge a book by its cover, and I'm embrace any experience that they have to share, because I'm here about the message and how I can be better, learn more.
And honestly, it's their narrative too. So I'm not going to sit here and dismiss somebody's story. I'm not going to do that. And I'm a known feminist. People know me as a feminist, and I will be listening to Plies, that bitch, bitches ain't nothing but.
It's all about balance.
Yeah, it's fun to me. I was listening to some song earlier today, and I was laughing about it. I think it was Future or something, and I was like rapping along with it, but it didn't apply to me. I'm like, okay, so does it apply to you? Why are you getting offended about it? It's just a song to have fun, and everything with. I was actually listening for the first time the song "Nasty Bitch." I forget who was it from.
Bust Down.
Yeah, and I was like, oh my God, but I was laughing the whole entire time. So I was like, this is so nasty.
One of my favorite album covers. I drew this so many times. You see the logo, it says "Nasty Bitch" on the license plate. Like, that's one of my favorite album covers. It's from Bust Down.
Oh my God.
He really named that his album. The name of the album is "Nasty Bitch Chapter 1.
I never heard it before, and I was like, oh my God, but it was funny. It's vulgar, it's funny. It's, it was shocking to me, which is funny because I'm known to have a vulgar mouth, and I'm just like, oh my God.
But it's transitioning in comedy. Like, I can tell, even with my comedy preferences, Red Fox, Bernie Mac, Richard Pryor, Eddie Murphy, they were all like very vulgar, and I loved it. Like there was this guilty pleasure. Like,
Yeah.
it's a balance. It's like
Hmm.
if you're at work and you're at school, you kind of want to break from the norm. Nothing's monotonous. You know what I'm saying? You always need something different, because
Yeah.
I didn't indulge myself in it. I love sugar free, but I ain't about to be pimping a bitch, and I ain't gonna call a woman out her name either.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And I treat any woman that I know with the utmost respect, and my daughters can
Yeah.
attest to that. You know what I'm saying? So it's all about music, and like
Yeah.
Barry said, this is entertainment. If
Yeah.
you look at it as entertainment and just that,
Yeah.
then there's no judgment involved.
No. I mean, it's words. Words do hold value, but if you put value to them, and there's songs that I'm not going to put value to because it's just a song for me to shake my ass and have fun to be honest with you. So it's really just words, and it's funny because words mean different things in different places. There's a lot of people that are not from this country, and they will be saying bitch, fuck, all that stuff, and it doesn't mean anything to them. So it's really what
Yeah,
the value you have with the words. And I take things as as it is. Like if it doesn't, it's not offending me. It's not offending me.
yeah.
Just for final thoughts. What because I grew up. Okay, so I was born in New Jersey. I grew up in Florida. I call myself a trap princess because I love trap. I love mulatto. I love flies. I love Young Jeezy. I love Ti. I love all of that. But I also, I love. I used to listen to Dipset, um and I like Tupac, and I listen to the Game, and I listen to all the West Coast music as well. So what is like the known difference from each like big place? Like what is LA known for? What is New York known for? What is Detroit rappers, Chicago rappers, Florida rappers? Like what is a different sound, just for my
Sound wise is production. I'll say the West Coast, or I guess the South, is heavy in the 808 and the drums.
okay.
West Coast heavy in funk, and sonically the clean sounds from the G Funk era to the West Coast sound to that gangster. Detroit, and I say New York is all perspective. They're rapping about what they see. So when Dipset, they're Harlem. They're gonna talk about fashion. They're gonna talk about these clothes, the gold chains, what they're wearing and what they're seeing and what they're driving. But also what's going on in the neighborhood. Detroit's the same way. We're very fashion orientated. We talk about buffs. We talk about our fur coats. Biggie himself said it. We're my Detroit players. Think pink Gators. My Detroit players. Coogee sweater now, living better now. Like those are things, a reflection of Detroit. Even Biggie, once again, he knew the influence. Like he say, I'm from Houston, but I rap a lot. I'm not from Houston, but I rap a lot. Like he was cognizant of the movement that was going on in the South with Rap a Lot and Scarface. So, it's all perspective. Like, and when you said perspective, that's what kind of music gives. Because there was a story, like a therapist was talking to two brothers, and they asked them, both their fathers, they asked one son who was an alcoholic, why did you drink? And he said, because my father was an alcoholic. Then he asked the other brother, he said, why don't you drink and choose not to drink ever? He said, because my father was an alcoholic. So you can take the same situation, like as you said, and it's all about perspective. You know what I'm saying? So it's you just look at the message. But I'd say the different genres is just basically perspective in each sound, and sounds too.
That's powerful. My dad, we're really big into sports in my family, and sometimes he'll talk to me about people from the past or whatever. And he's like, because they'll have new documentaries about people that played football maybe in the 70s or in the 80s, and he'll tell me the stories about how he used to go watch them and whatnot. And he was, emphasizing the fact that, back in the 80s and, 90s, there wasn't social media. How did you get your news across? Especially if, the basic television stations, NBC, CBS, ABC, they weren't telling your story. It was through things like this, through music, through hip hop, through the culture. That's how you got your stories across. So
the reason I'm in Atlanta, period, is because I heard just two things. Spike Lee's movie Do the Right Thing. I seen this Black experience in college, Different World sitcom with Jasmine Guy, started by Bill Cosby, where they're talking about the college experience in the South. But hearing Outkast talk about riding the MARTA, and talking about these places in Atlanta, Lenox Mall, Greenbrier Mall, where Crisscross was discovered. All these key words were like kind of driving me, but it was once that moment when I came in '94, and I was like slap dab in the middle of Freaknik.
Yeah.
Like I was I seen so many of people that looked like me that were, of a not poor but middle class, had businesses, had success about them, were happy, were smiling, and I was attracted to that. So music, I'd say South music did that. Outkast did that to me. Representation matters in film and TV because it brought me here to kind of help me find my purpose and even start a family. So
Yeah. Yeah, very true. And final question, what is your advice for any new artists, that is starting off, that wants to be in hip hop? What is your advice for them?
stay true to what you do. Never compromise your integrity. Try not to sell your soul. Realize that it's a marathon. Think big picture. Realize that you're gonna go through every emotion, the ups and downs, but embrace the struggle, because behind the storm and on the sea comes smooth sailing. Like every time something's happened in my life where I thought was gonna be the end, like right behind it, was success. So I like to tell people, like, right on the other side of fear is your success that's waiting for you. You just have to open that door. Martin Luther King says faith is taking the next step and not knowing where it leads to. So it's just about, embrace the struggle. Like when I'm like, even Will Smith taught me, like, when I'm fearful or feeling uncomfortable, that makes me feel good. I used to run from that, but now if I'm starting feeling nervous, like when I was on FaceTime with LL Cool J, telling him my dad took me to, my hands were shaking. But at the end of that call, he's like, "Yo, you got a lot to learn, my man. Like, yo, yeah, I'm gonna get my people to call your people, man. Yo, rock the bells, this Nuface and da da da." And then there was meetings after that, but I knew like that moment like was special. So whatever happened, that moment could have been enough, but I knew I was shaking for a reason. Like I knew I was nervous, and the universe was telling me, like, "Yo, this is what you kind of wanted. This is your purpose." So I tell people, just follow your purpose,
Yeah.
and put purpose over profit. Like I've always did that. Anything I've ever done hasn't been money motivated, but now money's chasing me. I don't chase clout. Clout starting to chase me, and the attention is coming to me. And I plant these, and just know that you plant these seeds, and they're not going to grow instantly. You know what I'm saying? So I'm reaping the benefits from seeds that I planted from like 10 years ago. Like even me being on this interview, is I knew Phil decades ago. That's a personal friend of mine, and here we are in 2020, and him saying this is somebody that I know. And because of our relationship that I have with him, I'm gonna trust whatever he says, because I remember being having a store in my dorm room, and I went to class, and I sold stuff like honey buns, soda, ramen noodles, lighters, blunts, and I went away, and not caring. But when I came back, he gave me a cup, and he said, "This is all the money you made when you were away." Like that spoke integrity. That spoke how well he valued my relationship with him. He could have either said the shop was closed, or he could have even pocketed the money.
Yeah.
So like experiences like that are what I'm grateful for. So it's definitely an honor to be meet you personally. I wish the
Thank
best for you with
you.
this podcast, and I appreciate you.
Thank you. I appreciate it too. Thank you for coming on. It's been a pleasure. I learned so much. You really, you really taught me some stuff, and I'm going to sit back and reflect. And I thank you for your time. It's a pleasure meeting you. And yeah, thank you guys for listening to Love and Lust. Love and Lust is a podcast about sex and relationships. I will have Nuface's IG and everything posted below. And I will see you guys next Tuesday. Thank you.